Microphone check 1 2, testing 1 2 3. Can you guys hear me okay? Welcome in, Christine, Ziggy, Charles, Cheeks, Mistress of Wine, Lynn. Thank you, Cheeks. All right, guys, welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. Today we will be diving into the West Memphis 3 case, Karen Reed updates, somewhat of an update with the Maura Murray case, and overall just an open discussion. This is my true crime journey, and I'm taking you along for the ride. These are some of the cases that I've been digging into or keeping up with. So feel free to chime in. All right, there's a poll question of the day. Where should we start? You guys can select whether we start with West Memphis 3, Karen Reed, Maura Murray, or if you want to leave it up to me. So far, it's the West Memphis 3 is tied with my choice. And I think that would be my choice. What's up, Jill Moser? Jeanette, how you doing? Karen Hick says no Delphi. Actually, I do have a few things on Delphi. We're going to start with that. But it's not on the agenda, but there are. I'm glad that you reminded me. Nothing big. I just have a few questions for you guys on a few things. GFK MF. Hello. Louise, good to see you. Cheeks, don't get me started on West Memphis 3. Mark says, how can I be a mod? By not asking to be a mod? That's the first step. So yeah, just by you asking, you'll probably never, ever, ever be a mod. What's going on, Shimona? Mama Shimona. Sparky, good to see you. Yeah, most of my mods are like, I don't know what to do. I've never been a mod before. That's the kind of mod that I want. All right, I'll give you guys a minute or two on the poll. Right now it's tied, West Memphis 3 versus my decision. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to select West Memphis 3. If you guys see me grab the GAT, it's because I have a fly who I believe has officially declared war upon me and my workstation here. So don't be alarmed. I know, some firepower. What's going on with you, Jill? Ruth Ann, how are you? I've been obsessed with West Memphis 3 forever. Karen Reed sucked me in too. Yeah, both interesting cases. You know, when they involve, I don't know, I guess polar opposites. You know, you have a group that feel, hey, this person might be innocent. And then you have the group on the other side of the coin. You know, they believe the person's guilty. With all this evidence that's very subjective, you know, those are the cases that interest me. Where you really got to, you know, take a real close look at the evidence and can't just kind of look at it from afar or join some kind of movement, right? You got to really analyze this stuff, especially when they're accusing Karen Reed of backing into John O'Keefe, and then you have the other side, the defense, saying, "Well, he was beat up, attacked by a dog, and left out in a snowstorm, and left there to die." I mean, the evidence is going to tell you what really happened, right? Or is it? Sometimes I wonder if evidence even matters, or if it's just the ability of the attorneys. How good are they at convincing a jury? It's not even really about the evidence, I don't think, anymore. All right, so it looks official. We'll leave the poll up there, and that'll kind of determine where we go from there. So, okay, this is what I kind of had planned for today, because I guess I consider myself a little bit on the fence when it comes to West Memphis 3. I feel like they might be guilty. This case reminds me a lot of the Delphi murders. So far, I lean on the big G for Karen, just saying all evidence will come out, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I feel like it's kind of obvious that, she hit him. Did she do it out of anger? That I don't know. Okay, so I think we should look at 10 things that would point at the West Memphis 3 being guilty. And then we should look at 10 reasons why they're not guilty, or why they're innocent. We know officially they are guilty. They're not in prison anymore because of an Alfred plea. So this case is up for debate, really. So I think we'll start with why the West Memphis 3 might be guilty. So we'll start with number 1 here. And I put this one at number 1 because I think it was the biggest piece of information or evidence against them. It was the biggest for me. And that is Jesse Miskelly's confession. Jesse Miskelly confessed multiple times to police, providing details about the crime, such as the boys being tied up and beaten. His initial confession came after a lengthy interrogation, and he later gave additional statements, including one to prosecutors against his attorney's advice. While critics argue it was coerced due to his low IQ, around 70 to 72, and inconsistencies, for example, the wrong time of day, proponents of guilt point out that some details, like the use of shoelaces to bind the victims, aligned with the crime scene, suggesting he had knowledge only a participant might possess. I think people are torn on that, and I was at one point, because I know that some confessions are coerced, and there is some evidence that happened here. But I think it's important to recognize what's said here. And he later gave additional statements, including one to prosecutors against his attorney's advice. Mistress says guilty and Delphi cult murder. Really? What's crazy is there were a bunch of sticks used in this crime too. mainly as weapons, but you never really know. The whole crime scene was flooded out before the investigators got to it. Not following the Karen Reed. I think it's a good back and forth. What's up, bootleg? Mistress says shoelace detail was fed by detectives. Yeah, didn't they show him the crime scene photos? Like before he officially confessed? Or am I tripping? I might be making stuff up. Good to see you, bootleg. Cheek says, there's one thing that really did swing me to say they are guilty. In the first documentary, the attorney said, Damien, I'll buy the beer. Damien said, whiskey, no more beer. Oh, like I'm a man now. Oh, that's crazy. All right, let's continue on. Circumstantial evidence and behavior. Damien Eccles was a local figure known for his interest in heavy metal. Oh, I love heavy metal. The occult. I don't know. I'm kind of into the occult too. Well, I used to be. The unconventional behavior which drew suspicion in a conservative religious community during the satanic panic. The good old days, right? Witnesses testified to hearing Eccles talk about the murders in a way that implied involvement, such as two girls claiming they overheard him confess at a softball game. While this evidence is anecdotal and lacks physical backing, it fueled the prosecution's narrative of the motive tied to a supposed satanic ritual. Shimona says, I personally think they were railroaded. Well, that's how I felt after I watched Paradise Lost Part 1. That's when I first realized the power of, well, we would call it now the power of social media or media, the media in general. Oh, okay. Gotcha. The nuance there. Thank you, Sparky. Maybe it's possible. I've watched a lot on the case. Showed Jesse one of the body on a table in the morgue, not at the crime scene. Oh, okay. So he wouldn't have really known that they were tied up. What do you think about the confessions? I think during trial there was two young girls that came forward and they said, "Hey, look, we overheard Damien Eccles confess to killing people. He said he killed those boys and that he was going to kill more. I think he was planning to kill more people." Yes, free shipping on all merch. Yep, yes indeed. Thanks, Sparky. Hey, what's up, bad actors? You gonna chime in? Okay, so we're starting with top 10 reasons that I think the West Memphis 3 might be guilty, and then we're going to look at my top 10 reasons why they might not be guilty. So far, we have Jesse Miss Kelly's confession and all of the circumstantial evidence and behavior, like the two young girls who witnessed, right? Damien Eccles confessed to killing the kids. and planning to kill more. Lynn, I never followed this case. Yeah, was he saying that just to kind of be scary? Like what do they call it? Gore porn or whatever. People are into that, horror movies. The more gruesome, the better. Kind of like people admitting to being the bridge guy. That's happened a few times. Like they thought that was cool. I could see Damien Eccles having that personality type. Didn't he make like a boogeyman comment that's kind of similar to that? Yeah, Terry Hobbs is pretty sus. I'll give you that. I think he, mm, I think he might even be like kind of like a suspect. Maybe they still have DNA that they haven't tested. Mistress DeWine, the confessions are bullshit. The girls were paid, given freebies for crimes they committed, like underage drinking. What's that? I think he lost me. Yeah, but didn't Jesse confess or Jason confess to like his cellmate or yeah, I think we'll get to that here in a minute. Welcome in Kate B. Voted for Maura because she's the only innocent one. Those four psycho killers need to stop with their fake innocence campaigns. Well, I mean, they were never found innocent. You know, technically on the books, these are guilty men. They're guilty of this crime. I think that's what it's called, gore porn. People that are into horror movies. I could be wrong. Could be another term for it. To your text. Don't know. Oh, really? Sounds like hearsay. Where'd you hear that at? Yep, the Alfred plea. Not only that, not only will they always be guilty, but part of the Alfred plea says that they cannot test the DNA on the shoelaces. So that puts Damien in a position where he can shout from the rooftops, like, hey, I want this tested. It'll prove that I'm innocent. Look, I'm even free. But knowing damn well that it's part of the deal. It's like a catch 22. It sucks. And if they do test it, it might even prove that they are guilty. But part of that Alfred plea is that they can't retest it for whatever reason. And I think they're like trying to go through the Supreme Court right now. We'll get into that. All right, let's take a look at lack of alibi. And you guys know how I feel about this. To me, this is huge. None of the three provided a solid corroborated alibi for the evening of May 5th, 1993, when the murders occurred. Eccles claimed to be with his girlfriend, then his family, or then at home, but accounts conflicted. Baldwin and Miss Kelly similarly couldn't definitively account for their whereabouts, which the prosecution used to argue they had opportunity to commit the crime. Ruth says Damien has a YouTube channel. I've only watched his channel a few times. No, I'm subscribed to that channel. Yeah, he's into some creepy shit. How crazy is that if, him and HBO and all these other kind of I don't know, there's like a dark force kind of going to work for them, don't you think? This weird campaign to get them off the hook or at least get him out of prison, right? Who knows? Maybe it was black magic. Dun, dun, dun. What's going on, Pitbull Mom? Welcome in, guys. CJK, how you doing? Going back and forth on guilt. The stepdad of the one boy, that's Terry. That's the guy I was referring to. And one day I was in a Delphi chat, and guess who became a member of a Facebook group? Boom, Terry Hobbs. And he was reaching out to Anna Williams. And we were like right in the middle of a conversation. And here he is. And nobody knew who he was. I was like, Terry Hobbs? No way. And everybody was just talking to him. And they were talking about losing children, and he was trying to be an advocate for Anna. Like, I know how it feels to lose a child. I lost my child to a very similar, incident. And nobody knew that he was talking about the West Memphis Three. But immediately I saw his name and I went, holy shit. Clicked on his profile, and there it was, Terry Hobbs, consoling Anna Williams about, trying to relate to her about how it feels to lose a child to brutal murder and not knowing that he's like a prime suspect in some cases, right? Allegedly. How creepy is that? I think I might have even have been the one that was like, that's Terry Hobbs from the West Memphis Three, like pointed him out, and then everybody was like, kind of like a beehive where they smothered him. But yeah, they should know he's up in there. I'll trust that guy. All right, so they had opportunity. That's number 3. Lack of alibi and opportunity. All right, so Jesse Miskel confession, circumstantial evidence and behavior, lack of alibi, and opportunity. Now let's go on to witness testimony against Baldwin. A fellow inmate testified that Jason Baldwin had confessed to the murders while in custody. Though the reliability of jailhouse informants is questionable, the testimony was presented to the jury and contributed to Baldwin's conviction alongside Eccles. So these are the top 10 reasons that the West Memphis Three might be guilty. We got Jesse's confession, circumstantial evidence, behavior, lack of alibi, opportunity, witness testimony against Baldwin. Kind of reminds you of like the Reese Davis and James Haas and all that stuff relating to the Delphi case. Like, can you even trust that? Makes you wonder where this jailhouse snitch is today and what his reward was for testifying. It makes you want to do like a follow up, find out who that gentleman was and find out if he was rewarded for his testimony, because it seems to have had a great impact. Oh, we got a scrub report. We got 45 watching and only 22 thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up, guys. It's right there. Just click it. We've been descrubbed. Good job. Welcome in. I appreciate that. You don't want to be a scrub. It's good to see you, CJK. All right. Although it is limited, let's talk about physical evidence. Okay, so while no direct DNA linked the three to the crime scene, a knife recovered from a lake near Eccles' home was introduced as a possible murder weapon. The prosecution suggested it could have caused some of the victim's injuries, though this was speculative and contested by the defense. Additionally, fibers found on the victim's clothing were said to microscopically resemble fibers from Baldwin's home, though this type of evidence is not conclusive and can be circumstantial. How do you guys feel about that kind of evidence? I thought that was pretty big. It's that kind of stuff that can sway a jury, I think, either one way or the other. When things get too subjective and scientific, you know, scientific method. What's going on, Mustang? Yeah, there was a guy and an unknown DNA. You're right, Shimona. If you're still referring to Terry Hobbs, for sure. Exactly. The 1,000-yard stare. It's always in the eyes, I feel. Okay, so they had fibers. The knife, it kind of matched a lot of the wounds. I think I think the defense may have referred to it as turtle bites. I know that sounds funny, but I think that's actually what they were trying to convince the jury that it was. But it really does look like the butt of that knife. You can kind of see it in the slideshow that I put together. All right, so let's move on to number 6. Prosecution satanic ritual theory. There was kind of a reversal of this during the Delphi case. It's like, hey, we can use it or we can remove it. It's kind of like the Illuminati card game. You know, let's play the ritual theory card. Well, let's reverse it. The state argued the killings were part of a ritualistic act led by Eccles, pointing to the mutilation of one victim, Christopher Byers' castration, and the way the boys were tied. They brought in a controversial occult expert, Dale Griffiths, who I thought was kind of a clown, who claimed the crime scene reflected satanic elements. Though widely discredited today, this theory swayed the jury at the time, aligning with Eccles' known interest in the occult. Yeah, he played right into their hands. Like, hey, we're trying to paint you as this devil worshiper, and he's like, oh yeah, Aleister Crowley this and Aleister Crowley that. It's like you can't even help me help you. But at the same time, it's like, well, those were the reasons I thought they were innocent. Like, you can't convict this guy of murder because he's into Aleister Crowley. Like, when I was that age, I read a few books on Aleister Crowley. Like I said, I was into the occult. I looked into it. I've read a few books about it. I know enough to recognize it and the symbolism and all of that. So that would be awful to be on trial for murder. And they're like, oh, were you into Aleister Crowley? And you're like, oh, yeah, there's this one book, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, shit, you are a Satanist. So that part is a little disturbing. And I think that's the reason why people were swayed into to the favor of them being innocent. Because there was a lot of mind games going on here. But remember, this is chess, it ain't checkers. Or maybe it's Chinese checkers. How about that? All right. The state argued the killings were part of a ritualistic act led by Eccles. Now, it's kind of easy to buy that theory because of the way he acted, right? He's always like playing with his hair, looking very emo, like, oh, I always knew I'd be known. I might, as the boogeyman. Ooh, Damien might be under your bed. Like, why would he say stupid shit like that? It made him look guilty. Okay, so you had the prosecution's satanic ritual theory, which I marked at number 6. Number 7, Miss Kelly's post-conviction statements. Beyond his initial confessions, a cellmate later wrote to prosecutors claiming Miss Kelly repeatedly confessed to the crime in detail while in prison, describing it as awful and cold. While this could be dismissed as hearsay or motivated by self-interest, it's cited by some as corroborating his earlier admissions. Well, there you go. Multiple confessions. Number 8, behavioral inconsistencies. What's going on, Jari? Okay, so behavioral inconsistencies, and this is going to go into what I was referring to. Eccles' own statements, like those captured in the documentary Paradise Lost, where he said, I always had that feeling. People are going to remember me forever. Struck some as odd or incriminating. Yes. Suggesting a lack of remorse or an embrace of notoriety. Critics argue this reflects his personality rather than guilt, but it was used to paint him as a leader in the crime. Know what I mean? So what do you guys think? It's just his personality? Like, hey, I didn't do this, but now that I'm here, in the spotlight, I didn't put myself in the spotlight. I'm being falsely accused. But now that I'm here, I always knew that I would be here in the spotlight. I mean, I think it's just kind of weird. To me, it's more of something a psychopath would say. Like, kind of reminds me of Koberger. Like, you always know that you're going to get caught. You just don't know when. I feel like some of these um, sadistic psychopaths who commit murders, who strive to be serial killers, I think they hope to get away with it and build up a large number before they get caught. I think they hope to. What's up, Stephanie? Welcome in, Redfoot. Says, personally, I think at the time of the crime, Eccles was starving for negative attention. It's like he actually wanted people to be freaked out by him. Yes, that's like I've seen that personality type before. I feel like that's kind of giving me like Elvis Fields vibes. Like, oh my God, my sister hasn't talked to me in over 30 years. And now everybody like wants to come talk to me. Like, hell yeah, I killed those girls in Delphi. Does that mean you're going to keep talking to me? Like, I haven't had a guest in like 15 years, and now I've had a guest almost every day this week. Yes, I had a blue jacket. Oh, I may have spit on this girl, or yeah, I might have placed horns. Yeah, I was definitely involved. Maybe, potentially, are you going to come have lunch with me tomorrow? Try to get me to confess? Redfoot. So it takes one to know one, right? Well, we were wondering the other day. I can't remember who we were talking about, but it was about death metal. I think it might have been Brian Koberger, where he was into death metal, and I was like, "Well, shit, I'm into death metal." And then I was like, "Well, we kind of assumed that that's what a serial killer would be listening to, something real heavy and dark." But that's what a normal person would think. Like, oh, if you're going to be some kind of psycho killer, you're going to be listening to some heavy metal. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're listening to something really strange. Like Hannibal Lecter, he was like always listening to classical music and stuff like that. We're always assuming that we know what they might be thinking. That's the game, right? Trying to figure it out. All right, jury misconduct and conviction upholding. Despite allegations of jury misconduct, For example, the foreman introducing Miss Kelly's confessions into Eccles and Baldwin's trial deliberations where it was inadmissible. Two separate juries convicted all three based on the evidence presented. Two separate juries convicted all three based on the evidence presented. Some argue this reflects the strength of the case and perceived by those closest to it rather than a miscarriage of justice. Yeah, so they got two trials and they were convicted by both sets of juries. Back, what do you make of that aspect? All right, number 10, lack of definitive alternative suspects. Even with new DNA evidence in 2007 pointing to others, for example, a hair linked to Terry Hobbs, a victim's stepfather, no alternative suspect has been conclusively tied to the murders. Supporters of the original verdict argue that the absence of a clear real killer keeps the focus on the West Memphis Three. But remember, there was a mention of a guy in, I think he went into a woman's restroom nearby at a nearby establishment, was covered in blood, even touched the wall and smeared some blood on the wall, and nobody went there to investigate that. I vaguely remember something about that. Bootleg, ready when you are, Sergeant Pembry, and he's like hitting the knife. What a good movie. Oh. Oh, I missed. Ooh, I think I got him. So one thing I hate about summertime here in Arizona, you're gonna have flies everywhere. Yeah, shitty defense. Yeah, it's a salt gun. Had a mosquito and a fly try to gang up on me. All right, let's look at the top 10 reasons that they might be innocent. Lack of physical evidence. No DNA, fingerprints, or other forensic evidence directly links Eccles, Baldwin, or Miss Kelly to the crime scene. Initial investigations found no biological traces tying them to the murders despite extensive searches of the crime scene and their belongings. Now, remember, only 10% of actual murder scenes will have the killer's DNA even present at the crime scene. So I think that's a huge misconception. And most reporters, when they're asking the investigative team, was there DNA at the crime scene? It's an easy yes for them because there's DNA at every crime scene. The question is the killer's DNA at the crime scene? They're going to say something like that. We don't know. All right. Coerced confession. Jesse Miss Kelly's confession, a cornerstone of the prosecution's case, came after a 12-hour interrogation, only a fraction of which was recorded. Miss Kelly, with an IQ of 72, gave inconsistent details. Some contradicted crime scene facts, like the time of the murder, suggesting possible police influence or fabrication. And that shit is real. That shit is real. We covered a case where a man was convinced by law enforcement, where he confessed to killing his father who lived with him. And then later that night, his father was actually found. This guy pulled his own hair out, ripped off his own shirt, and began clawing into his arm, confessed to killing his father. He was even institutionalized under a 72-hour hold. And even after they found out his father was still alive, they didn't release him. They left him in there for another 48 hours. So, so when people try to talk to me about confessions, I'm just kind of like, really, it depends. Every situation is different. What are the facts of each individual situation? Okay, what about the satanic panic influence? And that's pretty much what HBO ran on with the Paradise Lost documentary. These guys are being railroaded because they like to wear black, they listen to Metallica, and they read books about Aleister Crowley. The early 1990s saw widespread fear of satanic cults, which shaped the investigation. The prosecution learned on Eccles' interest in heavy metal and Wicca as evidence of motive, despite no proof of ritualistic intent, reflecting bias rather than facts. That's gross. Yes, total satanic panic. Yeah, and that's kind of what swayed me before because I was kind of a strange kid too. I didn't know any better. I was like always into like mysteries. And the occult is very mysterious. That sounds disgusting. All right, new DNA evidence. Post conviction testing in 2007 found DNA on crime scene items, like a hair on a ligature, that didn't match the three, but was consistent with Terry Hobbs, a victim's stepfather, and another individual. This point to alternative suspects never fully investigated. Redfoot says they made a movie about the West Memphis Three called The Devil's Knot. It was really hard to watch. The Devil's Knot. What was the premise of that? Or what was their angle, I guess? Okay, number 5, witness credibility issues. Key prosecution witnesses later recanted or were discredited. For example, jailhouse informant's testimony was unreliable, and Vicky Hutchison, who claimed Eccles confessed at the witch meeting, admitted to lying under police pressure. Number 6, alibi witnesses. Multiple people provided alibis for the three. Eccles was reportedly with family, Baldwin with friends, and Miss Kelly elsewhere during the estimated time of the murders, though these accounts were dismissed or downplayed at trial. So they did have an alibi. They just weren't really able to be convincing. I know what caused it. There was a movement that was pushing these videotapes. I can't remember what they're called. Um, Mail from Cold Truth kind of showed those to me and reminded me about them. They're these old videos, and it was like causing all this satanic panic. I wish I could remember the name of them, but it was this whole movement to pretty much brainwash everybody. They would like educate people on paganism and what it is and how to avoid it and how they hide it. kind of like the Holly weird stuff. But these were old, like 70s and early 80s video VHS cassette tapes. Something you might watch at like Sunday school or something. Okay, mishandled crime scenes, number 7. Ooh, Miranda with the 7-month flex. Thank you. Appreciate you. The crime scene was poorly managed with evidence potentially contaminated by police and volunteers. This compromised the integrity and any physical findings, reducing the reliability of what little was collected. So you had people touching the I think it was actual investigators were touching the young boys with their bare hands. So when they would swab their genital region for DNA, they would get the boy's DNA mixed with another person's DNA, which was most likely the investigator who was touching the body without gloves on, which is kind of weird, right? I thought that was very strange to hear that detail. Then again, this is pretty old. This is before DNA was a very powerful tool. Thank you, Jari. Yeah, Stephanie, that's what I thought. Okay, let's move on to number 8. Alternative suspects ignored. Terry Hobbs and John Mark Byers, stepfathers of victims, had inconsistencies in their stories and histories of violence, but were not thoroughly investigated. Hobbs' DNA link and Byers' odd behavior, later shifting to support the three, raised questions. Number 9, jury misconduct. Evidence suggests jury considered Miss Kelly's confessions during Eccles and Baldwin's trial, despite it not being admissible there. This breach confirmed by affidavits tainted the verdict process. Yeah, that should have been a mistrial right there, in my opinion. And I think it was, wasn't it? Number 10, support from experts. Forensic experts like Dr. Werner Spitz argued the wounds contributed to a satanic ritual were likely postmortem animal predation, not human inflicted, undermining the prosecution's narrative. Legal advocates, including the Innocence Project, have also backed their case. See, now, I disagreed with that. I believe that it did match the butt of the knife that was found near one of the suspects' homes. That's just my opinion. Okay. Let's go into the DNA they're trying to test on the shoelace. So, a key ongoing issue in the pursuit of advanced DNA testing on untested or retestable evidence, which could potentially exonerate them or identify the true perpetrators. Okay, this is where it gets tricky. So, part of the agreement, which was an Alfred plea, says, like, hey, these guys are guilty of the crime, but we're still going to let them out. We're no longer going to keep them incarcerated. But on the books, they're guilty. But part of the agreement was they couldn't test the shoelaces for DNA. They're like, okay, the case is done. It's over with. It's solved. You guys are still our guys, but because of some strange circumstances, we're gonna have to let you go. You didn't win, we didn't win. You didn't lose, we didn't lose. We're gonna go our separate ways. But we're gonna prevent you from being able to show who actually committed the murder. So this is like a worst case scenario for any case, right? The killers are now out. There's nobody really investigating the case because these are the convicted killers. So this is like a worst case scenario for sure. And it also puts Damien in a good position to go around and do like media tours and say, "Oh, I'm trying my hardest to get this new, the DNA tested off the shoelace." But he knows more than anybody that it's part of the agreement and it can never be tested. So he can yell all he wants, but he knows damn well that that might still prove that he's the killer. Very tricky guy. Potentially, right? Okay, so let's look at the background on the evidence. The original investigation lacked DNA linking the three to the crime scene. Post conviction testing in 2007 found DNA on a ligature, a shoelace, and a hair near the bodies that didn't match the trio but was consistent with Terry Hobbs, a victim's stepfather, and another unidentified person. This shifted focus to alternative suspects, though no one else has been charged. All right, let's look at the legal fight for testing, right? And I say legal fight because this is pretty much Eccles' his attempt to get it retested, knowing damn well that he can't. In 2022, Eccles sought testing of evidence, particularly the ligatures, using the MVAC wet vacuum system, a method more sensitive than earlier techniques, capable of extracting DNA from porous surfaces like shoelaces. Crittenden County Circuit Judge Tanya Alexander denied this, ruling in Arkansas's Act of 1780 allowing post-conviction testing applied only to incarcerated individuals. See, very tricky. Eccles appealed, and on April 18th, 2024, the Arkansas Supreme Court reversed this in a 4-3 decision affirming that the law permits testing regardless of custody status, remanding the case for further consideration. So they haven't said, yes, we're going to allow the testing, but we're not going to say no. All right. So as of late 2024, Eccles' team's plans to request testing not just of the ligatures, but also retesting of previously analyzed items, the 2007 hairs, and an unknown allele for genetic genealogy. No firm testing dates are set, though Eccles had hoped for results by the year end of 2024. Remember, we kept hearing all this breaking news. Oh my gosh, there's going to be testing. In the West Memphis 3 case, Damian Eccles is going to the Supreme Court. Nope, still no testing. All right, a timeline now uncertain. The defense aims to use cutting edge methods like MVAC and genetic genealogy, which could amplify trace DNA and trace familial links, respectively. Costs borne by Eccles remain unclear until the scope of testable evidence is finalized, which will most likely never happen. All right, so that's all I had on West Memphis 3. Let's see where you guys are taking us next. So the poll says, where should we start? And I figure we'll just go in order. Looks like you guys want to dive into the Maura Murray case. And honestly, that might be all we have time for. But before we do anything, let me pull up that Delphi stuff that I wanted to show you guys. Now, this is something that was brought to my attention. I knew about it a long time ago, but there's so much information, you kind of lose track of it all. But shout out to the subscriber who pointed this out to me. And I think even wife Lilith had shared this at one point. So let me share my screen. That might help. Okay, so this was pulled from Keegan Klein's Facebook. So I want you to notice the date. Keegan Klein, October 18th, 2018. And I had recently made a video, I think it was titled Richard Allen's Appeal. And I did a quick overview of Abby and Libby's case and stated Libby's full name and her birth date. And one of the viewers kind of had a eureka moment, was like, oh shit, that reminded me of something on Keegan Klein's Facebook. So this was posted before he was arrested. He's now back in Indiana, no longer in Vegas. And he posts this on Facebook. Now it says Apple Music here. And it appears to be the name of a song and maybe a release date with the thumbnail of the song and the name of the artist. Well, the interesting thing about this is 12/27 is Libby's birthday and her middle name is Rose. So what do you got? You think there's anything there? Is that too much of a reach on that? So I mean, why, if this is related to Libby, I mean that is her date of birth, that's her middle name, Rose. Why, I just don't understand. If he has nothing to do with her murder, why is he interested in her? If she was just some other girl that he was messaging who got caught in his, this large web that he was kind of throwing out there, one of the 50 girls a day just happened to be Libby, and he had no specific interest in her. Why create something like this? So 12/27 is her date of birth, and her middle name is Rose. Does it matter? Does it mean anything? Now, he posted something very similar that may be as equally interesting. So it looks like another thumbnail to some music that's being released. But this time he has a release date of 12/24. It's a new album titled Sick, and it's featuring Beartooth. I wonder who that is. And in the background are a bunch of children's beds. See these? It's a whole room filled with old children's beds. It looks like an old children's hospital. The name of the song is called Artery. And if you've ever seen the crime scene photos, Libby's hands are covered in blood, very similar to this. So it's kind of weird, right? So on one hand, he has a similar thumbnail for another song titled Rose. Release date is Libby's birth date, and the title of the song is her middle name. And then right around the same time, he releases another song called Artery. The girls were cut in an artery in the neck. Libby looked just like this character here with these hands, but instead of dirt, it was blood. All right. What do you guys make of that? Lynn says strange. Charles, I didn't say I liked them. I said I don't think they're involved. Bad actors, damn. Hey, big country. Who came out with these? This is Kagan Klein. Here's the other one. Title of this song is Rose. Release date 12/27. Liberty Rose, German. Born 12/27. Yeah, what is Beartooth? Didn't Richard Allen say something like about a bear claw or something weird during one of his ramblings? Like bear paw? He said something like that. Bear paw. Yeah, it is a heavy metal band. Hey, what's up, Chandler? No, Link. We're gonna just blow through all of this. We only have an hour. We'll stop sharing that. Start that over. Okay, so you guys may have heard about the Maura Murray case recently. They're kind of bringing up old information. I'm not exactly sure how relevant it is today. We're going to take a look. But the name Stephen Baldwin is being thrown around. It's an ex-boyfriend of Maura. His name used to be Stephen Finkelstein, but he changed it, not long after she went missing, which is kind of suspicious, in my opinion, right? Everything is alleged. We're not here to accuse anybody. What's up, Brian? Lethal Needle. What do you mean by that, Brian? Is that another band? Bear shit. Okay, let's do a quick overview. Maura Murray is an American woman who disappeared on February 9th, 2004 after a car crash on Route 112 near Woodsville, New Hampshire. She was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst at the time. She was born on May 4th, 1982 in Brockton, Massachusetts. She grew up in Hanson, Massachusetts in an Irish Catholic family with 4 siblings. Her parents, Frederick and Lori Murray, divorced when she was 6, and she was primarily raised by her mother. Excuse me. Murray was a high achieving student and athlete. She graduated from Whitman Hanson Regional High School, where she excelled as a track star, and later attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, studying chemical engineering before transferring to UMass Amherst to pursue nursing. On the day she vanished, she emailed her professors and work supervisor claiming she needed a week off due to a family death, a claim her family later said was untrue. She then drove north from campus, crashing her car in Haverhill, New Hampshire. A local resident reported the accident at 7:27 p.m., and a passing bus driver stopped to offer help, which she declined, saying she had called roadside assistance. By the time police arrived minutes later, she was gone and her whereabouts remain unknown. Her disappearance has sparked widespread speculation, with theories ranging from voluntary departure to foul play or an accident in the wilderness. Items found in her car included a AAA card, personal belongings, and alcohol, but her debit card, credit cards, and cell phone were missing and have never been used since. The case gained significant attention, becoming a focal point in true crime discussions, especially after the rise of social media. Her family, particularly her sister Julie, continues to seek answers, launching initiatives like the 2024 podcast and media pressure to share Maura's story and generate leads. And this is still an unsolved case. I don't assume anything about the police anymore, Chandler. That's for sure. You know, they're under such a time crunch. They're under the practice of, oh, well, my colleague said he looked into it. That's good enough for me. They just don't have the time to double check each other's work, unfortunately. At least that's one thing I've noticed. Just an observation. Okay, so who is this Stephen Baldwin who's been named recently? A lot of you don't know this name. We've talked about it. Me and Chandler have talked about this guy briefly. Okay, Stephen Baldwin is a former animal advocate at West Point and West Point cadet who has recently gained attention due to his connection to the Maura Murray disappearance case, as well as his conviction for animal cruelty and related crimes in Ohio. Baldwin, originally named Stephen Finkelstein, attended the U.S. Military Academy at West Point from 1999 to 2001 alongside Maura Murray, a nursing student who vanished in February of 2004 after a car crash in New Hampshire. True crime author James Renner, who has extensively covered the Maura Murray case, reports that Baldwin and Murray were in a relationship during their time at West Point. Baldwin allegedly acted as her student representative during a disciplinary review and left the academy within a week of Murray's withdrawal in 2001. In a significant development, Baldwin's fingerprints were reportedly matched to evidence inside Murray's car, specifically a CD or CD case. After his arrest in 2020 for unrelated charges, Baldwin confirmed this to Renner during an interview around his sentencing in March of 2025. Though he denied any involvement in Murray's disappearance, suggesting his prints were from an earlier interaction, possibly a lone CD, the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit has not publicly confirmed this fingerprint match as a definitive lead, leaving its significance unclear. So I don't know. I don't know how important it is. That's him right there on the screen. If he was dating the girl, don't you think it's likely that they would exchange CDs and those said CDs would have his DNA on it? What do you guys think? So is this a nothing burger, or is this something significant, especially knowing that he's not a good guy? Stephanie says, "How do we know that the bus driver didn't do it? He even stopped there." Yeah, I mean they looked into him pretty good. Maura's father put up a good fight to get some digging done in his property, and I even believe cadaver dogs may have even picked up on something down there, but they dug it all up and they didn't find anything. Was she moved? I don't know. She could have been buried and then moved later. All right, let's learn a little bit more about this Mr. Baldwin here. Beyond the Murray case, Baldwin's life took a darker turn. After leaving West Point, he worked various jobs, including at YMCA's and a drug treatment facility in California, before settling in Ohio. There, he became a notable figure in animal welfare, serving as executive director of Union County Humane Society from 2008 to around 2013, and later founding the Animal Cruelty Task Force of Ohio, ACT Ohio or ACT Ohio. Initially celebrated for rehabilitating aggressive dogs, Baldwin's reputation unraveled when investigations revealed he was taking payments from owners and rescues to retrain dogs only to euthanize them, killing at least 18 dogs and over 100 cats while pocketing the funds. His actions came to light after his arrest in August of 2020, and following a January 2024 bench trial, he was convicted on 32 felony counts, including cruelty to companion animals, grand theft, bribery, telecommunications fraud, tampering with evidence, and impersonating a peace officer. On March 13th, 2025, he was sentenced to 15 and a half years in prison. Damn. All right, let's go a little bit deeper. In the Murray case context, Baldwin's connection remains speculative without official confirmation from authorities. Julie Murray, Maura's sister and a key advocate via her Media Pressure podcast, has not publicly addressed Baldwin by name but referenced a West Point cadet who ceased communication after she confronted him with the photo of him and Maura at UMass, hinting a possible overlap. For now, Baldwin's fingerprint in the car is the most concrete tie, but it's not enough to label him a suspect without further evidence. His criminal conviction and past with Murray keep him a figure of interest in both true crime circles and animal welfare discussions. Here, I think I have more on him. Let's see. Here's an article. This was put out on the 15th of this month. Let's start here. From West Point to YMCA and missing women. Baldwin claimed on LinkedIn, for instance, to have attended the U.S. Military Academy at West Point from 1999 to 2001, earning a bachelor's degree in philosophy. The dates of when Baldwin said he attended West Point conflict. However, with those, his active duty stint in the U.S. Army from July of 1998 to December of 2001. Here, let me share this with you guys. So that was him in the military. Okay, James Renner says that while admitted to West Point, he was expelled in 2001. Before that, according to Renner, Baldwin at West Point was socially involved with the co-ed, Maura Murray, who later dropped out, transferred to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and disappeared in a much publicized unsolved case on February 9th, 2004. See, I thought I had some information on his abusive history, but I don't. What's up, Cammy? All right, that's all I had for you guys, really. I think we'll get into the Karen. We'll do a part 2, and we'll get into the Karen Reed updates. It's dinner time for me. How you doing, Miranda? What about rumors she hooked up with a Stefan a few nights at a party before she went missing? I didn't know that. Let's go to Chandler. According to police, they checked out everyone at that party, but once again, you can't believe anything the police say in her case. And I agree with that. You can't believe what law enforcement says, and you can't believe what the family members say. Because most times the family members are just repeating what they think they heard from law enforcement. It's like secondhand misinformation most times. Yeah, welcome in, Mark. Stefan and Stefan. Stefan and Stefan. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for this quick little live stream. I really wanted to cover the West Memphis 3 mainly and touch on what was going on with Maura's case. We can always come back and touch on the Karen Reed information. There's a lot of stuff to unpack, actually. And I don't want to rush it. So we might even do this early tomorrow morning. For those of you who are interested in that case, I know it's kind of split. The crowd is split down the middle. Thank you, Pitbull Mom. Big shout out to all of you who caught the live stream. Thank you, Miranda, for the flex. Thank you for supporting my channel. Big shout out to all of my members, all of my subscribers, all of you who continue to donate to the Cash App, the Venmo, and the Zelle. Thank you, guys. I couldn't do it without you. And I'll catch you on the next one. And shout out to the replay crew. You guys know exactly what to do. Drop a comment and we'll get back to you. Peace.